We are talking about a personal data or personally identifiable information. And I've described what is personally identifiable information at the bottom. In a nutshell, it may not be just your personal data, but it's something through which your data, your identity can be extrapolated. For example, your PAN card number. It's unique and it belongs to you. If somebody has access to your PAN card number through maybe publicly available sources or any other source, if possible, you can be traced through that number. That's the personally identifiable information. Okay. Information security, it's a good to have thing for any industry. For example, if you have information security controls and you have certifications like ISO, it's good. You are recognized as an organization who is doing enough to secure the three elements which we are talking about. Whereas the data privacy, there is no other way but to drive it through a data privacy law, because we are talking about individuals' information, individuals' life. So this is the key difference between information security and data privacy, which I just talked about. First is the first one is only related to data privacy through your personal and personally identifiable information, and information security could be for your any product information, marketing information, anything like that. And the other part which I just described is the involvement of a law in the data privacy area. Okay, so what do we do in an IT industry when we typically, let's say, we work in our area looks after the outsourcing scenario, the data which comes from a lot of countries, data which flows to India, and we process it over here. What do? We look at all the processes together, we kind of filter it, find out which processes have personal data or PII data involved in that. So for example, all the processes you could have invoice processing data where you have name of the vendor, what is the bill amount, and things like that. Or any other industry would, let's say for example, Infosys or Wipros, typically if they are doing the application development work, that kind of work. So look at all the processes, filter it, find out which of those processes have personal data involved in it. For example, payroll processing, right? Payroll processing would have your name, would have your identification number, employee number, would have the salary details. Maybe in some cases you would have some, if any organization is giving special benefits for particular ethnicity and things like that, that also is involved in payroll information, right? So that is personal data, and at the first stage what we do, we filter that data and find out which are the key processes I have to give special attention to from a data privacy point of view. Okay? Now what do we do then? I talked about information security controls. So all processes, if the organization is information security ISO 27001 certified, all the processes would get an attention from ISO controls or the information security controls, right? So for example, controls like physical access control, people should not, there should not be free movement of people across your building premises, or you should have your system should have password controls or antivirus. So these kind of controls are implemented across all organizations. On the other side, you have processes with personal or PII data for which you would need special controls to be put in place. So for example, if you have, if you're processing credit card data, you would need something like a masking. I don't know if you have noticed, it is not like a completely implemented all the places, but when you swipe your credit card and you take a bill, you only see the last 4 digits of your credit card. It's not the entire thing, right? I've seen it like maybe 50 or 60% places, but I think slowly it is kind of gaining momentum that you should not publish the entire credit card data when you give out those slips for the credit card usage. So masking of those entire number is something which an organization has to kind of typically look at when you look at data privacy controls. So through this slide, the key thing which I wanted to highlight was that for all processes you have information security controls implemented. For processes with personal data, you have specific controls for data privacy. Now, since the personal data or the PII data is also comes kind of overall a part of your organization's data, you also have the ISO controls or the information security controls implemented for data privacy or the personal data point. So you see on the right hand side you have an additional layer of controls which is put against the processes which are using the personal data. Okay, on this slide what I am trying to summarize is that what is the current status of data privacy laws across the globe now, and this will actually translate into a need which I will summarize. We talked about the European Union's Directive 9546 EC, through which they made it mandatory for all the European countries to have a data privacy law. Right. Post that, US had to come up with something which complies with that the directive. They come up with safe harbor. Through safe harbor, if any European country, if any European organization wants to deal with a US organization, the US organization need to have safe harbor compliant controls in place, which means they have to have certain controls in place, some principles already defined and implemented. Then only they can deal with the European country organization. So if the data is flowing from European Union to US, the safe harbor compliance is a must for the US organization. Let's talk about India. If the data is flowing from EU to India, India is considered to be an inadequate country in terms of data privacy laws, because we don't have any data privacy laws. So apart from a couple of 3 or 4 countries in the world which EC has defined, all other countries are considered to be inadequate. India is one of them. So what we need to do with all these organizations is that we need to get into a model contract. Model contract is a standard language which EC has defined to what is the roles and responsibilities and accountability of the people who are collecting the data in European countries, and what is the roles and responsibilities and accountability of the organization who is processing, who is going to process their data in an inadequate country, and in this case India. So same is the case with Australia, and US with India we have no legal barriers to, but with a caveat that US has adopted a principle or a philosophy of implementing privacy laws, which is in a nature which is laissez-faire, which means you would not implement a law unless there is a need in that particular industry. For example, in medical industry you have HIPAA. That's a US driven or US law which is only for the organization who are dealing with medical information in various stages of maybe it may be medical insurance, it could be your diagnosis and things like that. But for if it is a general data which is flowing from US to India, there are no legal barriers. Okay. So I already talked about it, so I'll not stress too much on this. We have India is considered to be inadequate country because we don't have a specific or robust law in place, and that actually brings me to the point that the need for a data privacy law in India. So some of the key points I have highlighted. It's not a comprehensive list. So organizations currently are not aware of their responsibilities and liabilities while dealing with personal data. So the liabilities of data collectors, liability of data processor, or any intermediaries, organizations currently are not aware of. So that's one of the key need. Then we have ad hoc or inconsistent measures taken by the organizations to making sure that they comply with the data privacy requirements. So there is a state of confusion as of now as to what their roles and responsibilities and what are the liabilities they have. Then efforts are limited to cover the current data privacy requirements of the organization, and a holistic approach is completely missing. What I'm trying to say over here is that they would just look at it to meet a particular requirement for a particular process. They would maybe talk to some of the experts who from the country where the data is coming from, and just say, okay, this is what you are required to do, just do this much. So a complete holistic approach is missing. Then we have Indian IT and other organizations do not get the benefits of operating in an environment which is considered to be safe, and that's links back to the adequacy requirement. So we do not get benefit. Our overall standing, or IT industry's organization standing, is kind of little bit takes a beating there. So that's where the need of a data privacy law is there. Okay, this is the most boring part of my presentation, but I'll still go ahead. I've tried and summarized the key privacy principles which are available worldwide. And sometime back we were talking about let's benchmark our law to the best available in the world. So this has been taken from the EU directive, and the same has been implemented in the European countries' laws, and the same has been implemented for safe harbor. The same is there. So typically what happens if somebody pioneers a particular expertise in let's say data privacy, then people will just say take the best out of it and try and make if they want to implement or customize it to their country's requirement, they do it. So the point here is that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can just look at these some of the principles and kind of modify, or when we bring up with our data privacy laws, we definitely have to consider these. So the first one is fair and lawful processing, which means you need to have a consent from the data subject, and data subject is a person whose data you are processing. Part of the contract, you need to have a contract if it is an organization who is transferring the data or who is taking the data from the individual, defining the legal obligation. Second point is you process the data for the limited purpose. It means at the time of collection, you define what is the purpose of collection and you limit your processing only to that, right? Anish was talking about that medical guy asking about a lot of information. He had no business to ask about all this information, right? This is a very small example, but basically the principles say that you just limit yourself to your business. You don't do anything beyond, you don't process the data for any other purpose. Then we have adequate and relevant, not excessive processing. Again, if you have to kind of process it for any other reason which is legitimate, you have to once again go back to the customer or the if required to the final end data subjects and take the permission for that. Accurate, which means whenever you process the data, you have to maintain the accuracy of the data, which means it has to be kept accurate and up to date. And that's a key requirement when it comes to the access of the data. It should not, the people should not be given, or people who do not have any business to deal with the data, they should not have access to that. Then data not to be kept longer than necessary, which means here we are talking about data retention, which means if you have to retain the data only for let's say a year or 2 years when it is required for you to have it for whatever regulatory purposes, you just retain it for that long time and you don't retain it beyond that. Processing in accordance with the data subject's rights. Securities again we talked about, that's where a lot of controls would kind of overlap with the information security controls. And whenever you're transferring it outside the country, you have to take special precaution about it. So these are some of the principles which are available to all of us, and I think they should definitely be kind of considered when we are trying to draft our robust data privacy law in India. Again, compliance to privacy requirements from industry point of view. The process parameters are looked at. We assess the privacy requirements. So what we other point again I wanted to highlight over here was that in the industry we have, because we have to deal with the personal data from various other countries, we actually have been forced to look at all these data privacy laws which are specific to those countries. So in the second part, we look at the privacy requirements which are kind of now kind of our baby, which means we have to analyze those privacy requirements and make sure that what are the responsibility on the data processor, which in most cases we are the data processor. What we need to, what are the requirements, and then we transfer, we kind of assess from the requirements how we meet those requirements. We convert them into the activities and controls. That's where it is. Then we put a mechanism to on an ongoing basis that okay, these are the activities and controls I have to on an ongoing basis I have to maintain and have a compliance program around it. Final slides. Key benefits. Of course, the industry would benefit from such robust data privacy law in India because we would gain a lot of customer confidence. We would have competitive advantage because if we have a robust law or the structure in place in India, we would definitely benefit from that. Then personal data specific to data subjects, if sent out to other countries, would require to be safeguarded appropriately. So what I'm saying here is that if we have a law in India, right now we are in a situation where most of the work is being outsourced to India, but now we are seeing a scenario where some of the Indian companies are now sending their data outside India for processing, and they're expanding their business outside. Without having a law in India, those countries would not be obligated to safeguard the personal data coming from India. So a law would definitely is required to kind of take care of that situation. Otherwise, they would not be subjected to any kind of pressure to make sure the data is safe. And then, of course, uniform understanding about the responsibilities and liabilities is another key benefit which I'm trying to highlight. So that's pretty much it. Overall, in a nutshell, I want to summarize that the industry's experience with dealing with data privacy requirements across the globe in the last couple of years should be and it could be helpful while we are discussing and debating the law which is being currently in the bill form and would be kind of presented for passing in the parliament. That's pretty much it. Thank you very much.
We got one more perspective today of what privacy laws and what data protection means. We have been talking since the morning about the constitutional requirement of data privacy and privacy laws and data protection. We have seen the break, the other side of the law, the people who are on the other side of the law, how do they use this concept of privacy and data protection issues. Now we saw about individual concept of now we saw a institutional, that is organizational concept of data protection and privacy laws. Therefore we have different perspectives to the same topic we have had this morning. If anybody about 5 minutes we can have question and answer session, please.
Sir, actually I want to ask from Mr. Anish, as he said, a umbrella of company does anything wrong and he collects the data illegally. The company what it do actually, the company will throw out that person. The person knows very well, if I am doing anything illegal, I will be thrown out. And he also knows about his capability, that he can go to some other company and can get the job. So what the company is doing actually, the company is supporting that person Why didn't the company go for like some police complaint and something so that
They do that.
that person can really get growth or his work?
The companies ideally don't go for police complaint because obviously that brings down their brand value. First, they try to solve it internally. Second thing is the incident which I narrated. It was an of the guy was so curious about knowing more details about the other people, and that was it was a mistake even on the client side because they didn't mask the data, which they were supposed to do, and this guy got access to it. And that is the reason, he was so curious, he just wanted to know more about it. And that curiosity spread even into his colleagues.
Isn't it that indirectly supporting that person?
I don't think anybody will support such a person.
Indirectly supporting in the sense that, see sir, if I am stealing some data, I know that if I will get caught, I will be sacked only. I don't have any punishment. So that I am encouraged to do the act. Because by that time, anybody will catch hold of me, I will earn 10 times more than what I would be earning. Is it the company supporting or helping indirectly to the employee who is doing this thing?
There are some steps taken by the companies. For example, NASCOM has an initiative called NSR.
Because sir, I know that if I am working for some reputed company like Wipro, if they also throw me out, I will get a job in good company. By not publishing in the media or something like that to save the brand value, indirectly.
But see, these incidents, they make sure they don't go out to media. But there are steps taken to ensure that this does not happen again with any other company. For example, major IT companies here, Wipro, Infosys, they support NSR, National Skills Registry, which is an initiative by NASCOM. Every IT professional working for them has the IT PIN number. They go to NASCOM's website and they post it there saying this is what has happened with this guy. Please make sure when you hire him, it's your responsibility. And there are at times, they don't even give relieving letters, and that's above and all. They don't give relieving letters, the background verifications fail, and things like that happen. But they don't come out in the media and say, okay, we fired this guy and because of he did this and things like that.
Okay, one second. I will respond to you. There are again here two totally different perspectives. But this is what's happening in information technology law today. Information technology law has two sides to it. One is the information technology as an industry is one part, and you are talking about the legal part of it. Okay, you are talking about a deterrent. When somebody commits a mistake, what is the deterrent action you are taking? How do we stop that? But industry looks at it as a kind of the protection of their industry. See, there are two things here. That information technology is in a very, very primal stage today. We are yet to come to grips with these various contradictions we have here. You see, today Indian economy, we are talking in terms of that as though if most of the politicians in Bangalore will say that if we don't provide this facility, then they will leave Bangalore. As though that's the lifeline of this city now. Okay. Now, in that situation, if you bring in laws which we think legally, with compatibility with the existing legal system, they may not be happy with that. This is a contradiction which we have to resolve now. That's where information technology law is completely different from other laws. You have to please note that part of it as lawyers. You please look at it as very important thing here, because at one side, it is the lifeline of the society. I mean, that's what they presume at least, today. Then the other side we have the age-old legal system which believes in deterrent action. We need a deterrent action for any crime that is committed. But for a company, particularly a multinational company, if it loses face in a particular small case in which an employee is involved and he is terminated, and that goes to the media and that goes to the police, and of course most of the time police will not be able to even identify what the crime is. Most of the time it is not. In fact, in my concluding session I will bring out a couple of those issues and give you some examples also. That is the situation. What he is talking about in terms of this, what are the things that's happening? It's not actually a solution he's drawing at. And what he spoke about is the kind of corporate social responsibility they're talking about. They're not talking about legal compliance or diligence they're talking about. Mr. Navi is always very, he repeatedly says about diligence. That should be the word we should be using today. Diligence. What is the diligence that corporate is taking up? But most of the industry, I'm also part of the industry, I can tell you that, like he also pointed healthcare issues. We don't look at HIPAA as a legal position. We look at it as a requirement to satisfy the American business. In healthcare, we look